By sheer chance, I have installed Metro 2033 on my PC. I tend not to play games that I liked many years ago, because it can somewhat darken very fond memories of a title that I enjoyed so much. Something similar is occurring when it comes to films and books, but this I can watch or read several times before my mind starts to scream, stop. Anyways, back in April of 2025 there was Metro 2033 Redux for free on GoodOldGames and Steam platforms. Redux is the improved version released several years after the original, on updated engine that improved performance dramatically, because original had problems with using PC hardware properly. I thought to myself, yeah, I will install it and check out the performance someday to see how it aged. I also thought that the gameplay won't hold nowadays and I will uninstall it at the same day, as I recorded before mentioned performance. Boy oh boy, how wrong I was. I played every single Metro game in the series, but I still remember what an impression first one made on my young self. It was top graphics combined with the best atmosphere. I was shocked to find that the game is still excellent after all these years. Short story about the origin of the A4 studio responsible for Metro series. They were actually part of GSC Game World, responsible for Stalker, which actually I dislike with passion, because of wasted potential. I know it sounds like heresy here on YouTube Gaming, but both Stalker games with all the DLCs were a technical nightmare, unplayable for good performance enjoyers like myself. I'm sorry, but Stalker is shite and no amount of delusional fun explaining will convince me otherwise. Anyways, coming back to the topic of this video, I will tell you why Metro 2033 is a fantastic video game worth playing even in 2026. Buckle up, buckaroo, as you are about to step through the portal to the times when so many games were masterpieces. Firstly, the story and the setting of the game. If you haven't read Metro book series by Dmitry Gluchovsky, I implore you to do so, as those are cult classics. The best post-apo stories ever written by a country mile. I must admit that I am an author of post-apocalyptic series of stories myself, but they are nowhere near as good as those of Mr. Gluchovsky. The story in video game differs quite a bit, as you do not hear the inner monologue of the protagonist. Yes, you got some notes here and there and short thoughts during loading screens, but nothing close to what we had in the novels. To be honest, I didn't like Artyom in Metro 2033 book. I didn't like him at all because he was so different than me. But that didn't make me dislike the story itself. On the contrary, it made me see the presented world from the perspective totally different from my own. The stories told in-game had to be modified to the medium that they served. Do not be fooled, these are still great stories, but you really need to read books to experience the world of Metro to its fullest. Post-nuclear war Moscow Metro is a world full of friends and foes. People living in this cruel world, on the extremes of existence, reveal extreme behaviors. Some will act like heroes, helping others despite the high cost of such choices, while others will show you villainous side of human nature. Most of people of course sit somewhere in between most of the time, but these are presented as background NPCs. It is definitely a rare case to set characters in this way, and do it all the way from the start to the very end. It was a bold choice, but one that makes this game what it is. Some scenes are really heart-wrenching if you got a heart, and mine started to be more sensitive as of late. I don't know, it feels like something unlocked, like I am not that cold and unmoved as just few years back. I'll say it again and again, the old song that I sing. Maybe I'm getting old. No shit, Sherlock, no one is getting any younger. There is a heavy, almost mystical sense of post-Soviet Union spirit felt in this title, which people like me who were growing up at that time in one of those countries can recognize right away. It is something that cannot be lived through vicariously from a second or third hand. This ain't something you simply tell about. It is a burden that you carry with you for the rest of your life. If you were brought up there and then, you are marked. I don't know how to explain it. It's the same as I will never be able to put myself in the skin of Armenian who survived the genocide of their people. We need to come to an agreement with the fact that even if we can judge somewhat accurately what someone has gone through, we cannot fathom how it affects their perception of surrounding world on emotional level. Even if oftentimes pleasant for so many of us in modern day, life itself is hard and complicated, and it is shown with a great care in this game. But I will not keep you hanging on those heavy thoughts and divagations. I will neither tell you the story as it occurs in the game, as it is its main attraction. I will tell you, however, about the gameplay which you can experience here. It is a very simple loop with very few branching out ideas. Maybe because it's so simple, basic shooting mechanic, but it can be so good. Game is pretty difficult as the lowest difficulty level called here normal would be considered hard in most modern games, and boy, there are several harder modes, but not for the faint of heart. This is not only a first-person shooter but also a survival horror, comparable to the likes of Resident Evil. I got jump scared sometimes, even when I know I shouldn't, but it's just that good, believe me. Shooting got a little bit old, as it doesn't pack so much punch as in the past. There were simply many games made later on with better shooting model and feedback. It is what it is. Don't get me wrong, it was still not bad and somewhat satisfying when dispatching of mutants in heavy lead fashion. Of course, there are some stages where, and when, you can use stealth tactics, which I appreciate greatly, but these are kinda rare and it is easy to break stealth and make a bloodbath in the end. Still, after all these years, I cannot wonder enough how good the enemy models are. Someone had a great idea to make the mutants look like something pulled from the Alien movie or from a Doom game. That style will never get old as it is founded on the same rules as modeling ancient creatures like dragons. Despite all of the praise that I am singing for the game, it is not flawless by any means. For example, enemy AI is not very good, especially when it comes to human opponents. It is far cry from, well, far cry, crisis or fear. But hey, we can't have it all in one game. Bloody hell, I totally forgot, but the locations where people live in actually look and feel like locations that people would live in, given the circumstances. I guess it is long forgotten technique to make the game world believable. The more I notice things like this, the more I question myself, how could we let video games degrade so much? I guess everyone is at fault. Developers for not caring enough to make game world feel authentic, critics for not pointing that out and not screaming from the rooftops for course correction, and finally players for actually funding that degeneracy. The levels for combat gameplay are done with thought and care as well. Player is given many circumstances in which fights occur. One thing that is common among all of them is that it's dark and scary. Strangely enough, even when metro tunnels are mostly linear, oftentimes player can find alternative routes to the destination, or even secret rooms for loot and notes. I find it to be balanced pretty well. Most of the time you shoot your way through levels with some minor variants here and there. Well, very minor. However, someone had a stupid idea to make a very end of a game climbing puzzle and then some sort of psychedelic labyrinth, which I still dislike with passion after all these years. Fair warning, maybe kinda late in the review, but warning nonetheless. If you get severe arachnophobia, because almost every human has a mild one, this may be not the best game choice for you, or maybe it is if you are in the middle of exposure therapy. The amount of spider webs with mutated spiders crawling all over the place, it just might be a nightmare scenario for some of you. Okay, you have been warned. So what about the technical state of the game, as it has been like 11 years since the release of Metro 2033 Redux edition, as the original game was published back in 2010, believe or not. Visuals still look great, shadows and lights do the heavy lifting here. Of course, models and textures look dated for modern standards, but they are still not what I would call ugly by any means. Game looks very good for its age. The pure artistry and the usage of technology at hand that was available is something to reflect upon. This is something that newest Unreal Engine cannot give unskilled developers. You need both masterful engineers and inspired artists to achieve something like in Metro 2033. Maybe not many remember, but Metro's series were leading in graphics technology alongside Crysis series. Ah, good old times when developers were ambitious beasts, aiming to be the best they could at their craft. I guess many commentators were right about the disgraceful act of allowing unskilled activists into the industry, because it looks nothing like that nowadays. Now, how could this happen is beyond me. I was shocked how good human faces still look, better than in most modern games as of February 2026 as I write these words. Incredible. Moreover, I think with the advanced physics turned on, the smoke effects are the best in industry to this day. Another thing that I forgot about, the different color lights. Light the area in their color. I have a feeling like in the new games all the colors of light are blended together into some kind of slope. I guess it is slope in the end. Back in the day, developers didn't need ray tracing to make good dynamic lights and shadows. They've just done with what they had at their hand and used ingenuity to generate impressive visual effects. I am truly scared about the future of game engines when I think about it. And yes, I am not blind, I can see that some effects are rendered inaccurate. Like shadows levitating in the air behind the cover that casts them, instead of settling on the wall and floor. But these are few and far between and do not destroy overall presentation. Staying on the topic, there is no HDR support as the game uses software pseudo HDR that was popular back in the day. But let me tell you that it looks awesome when you set the gamma just right. Dark places are dark, lit spaces are lit, that's just impressive as hell. I wish all games were mastered so, well, masterfully. Bloody hell, even the intro screens and menu looks better than almost all of the releases in few recent years. Throw me sideways, but we really moved backwards. The less so polished game was, well, Metro Exodus from 2020, from the same developers. Even UI is looking good, it is simple, readable, and in the theme of the game. When I see the UI from modern Unreal Engine 5 titles, I have an urge to quit the game right away. When I think about it, it makes me really mad and sad at the same time. Okay, so it all looks very good considering age, or even disregarding it. But how it runs, as Metro games were very demanding when it comes to PC hardware. Performance is not as high as one would think. Don't get me wrong, playing in 200s and 300s of FPS is something I cannot complain about, but still, that's the performance of some new games, and Metro 2033 uses most of my hardware most of the time, so that's a testament of how scalable the A4 engine really is. I am shocked how good this game looks with anti-aliasing turned off. I said it this way because super sampling anti-aliasing is so expensive that on 2x it halves the frame rate and on 4x it quarters it. Madness. Anyways, I am sure there is some sort of process anti-aliasing because it doesn't look jagged enough, not even close. Some sources report that they used their own in-house derivative of FXAA, so that's probably the case indeed. On the other hand, audio has aged worse as it uses ancient codecs, but it is still serviceable and atmospheric, so it does its job in the end. What I really didn't like about it, however, was the spatial aspect that was highly exaggerated, meaning the difference between volumes as you spin your camera around was simply too drastic. When you turned 180 degrees, it sounded like you suddenly teleported several rooms further away from the speaker that was 1 meter from you. Not cool, but what's comforting is the fact that music in Metro series is legendary by now, so I'll just say it is beautiful and fitting, and I could not imagine it any other way by now. I don't wanna make this review too long because it would devolve into tirade about how the games were made in the past and how the art and craft degraded and degenerated over the years. Let's just wrap it up by saying that the game is very short by any standard, as it took me only 8 hours to finish it, and I wasn't rushing at all. I took my sweet time to sink into the world and admire how well it was all done. It was truly breathtaking and it didn't hurt my nostalgic memories of the game. On the contrary, this newest playthrough strengthened them even more. It was as good as I remember it. This game made me install the other 2 Metro games back on my hard drives, for me to play them at a later date. It's just that good. I almost never play any game the second time, but for this series I need to make an exception. I didn't know how I missed a good single player shooter with good narrative and dense atmosphere of survival horror. Jeez Louise, I hope upcoming Resident Evil Requiem will be good. But anyways, I can recommend Metro 2033 Redux to every mature player. It is 10 out of 10 in its class. Cult classic, masterpiece, and that's all folks. Let's pray for more games like this in the future, and I will see you in another great late review.